Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem. Amma ba'd. As mentioned earlier, inshallah, every week we're going to start off with a little bit of a class on the Prophet ﷺ, and then after that open it for Q&A. Zishan was telling me there's a lot of Q&A today, and I told him that whenever I go to UT Austin, I just came from there a few days ago, in the first few minutes they have about 50 questions. And this week I ended early, but when I went about a few months back, we started at I think about 9 p.m., 9:30 or something, and we ended about 2 a.m. Yeah, so you guys gotta get up there, get on that level. So I mentioned to you guys that there's this amazing story of the Prophet ﷺ. He's doing hijrah. It's Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, and it's their guide. And while they're doing hijrah, they get thirsty, they're hungry, and there was this tent between Medina and Mecca. Medina is a city. Does anyone know about how many miles away from Mecca? Approximately, give or take. 250 to 300? Yeah, 300. If you didn't know that, it's 300 miles away. It takes about 4 hours to drive there today. The Prophet ﷺ would cover this journey between 10 to 14 days. It would take him to cover this journey. So Medina was this little oasis city north of Makkah Mukarramah. The Prophet ﷺ, he's going, and just the way when you're driving from here to Houston, what's the famous spot you stop at in between? Buc-ee's, right? You have a Buc-ee's. So Buc-ee's, this sunnah, they learned it from the seerah. They used to have one in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. It wasn't called Buc-ee's, it was Marbad's. And she had this tent, and she was like this gas station. So you stopped there, you had some food, you had some drink, you paid her, and you moved on. The Prophet ﷺ arrives there, Marbad's home. He comes there and he says, "Is your husband home?" She says, "No, he's gone out." He says, "Okay." He's like, "Do you have anything to eat or drink?" And she says, "No, there's nothing. I'm dry here. All of our machines are done. Our McFlurry's broken. Everything is finished. Our fryers don't work. We're out." The Prophet ﷺ says, "Okay, where is your?" She says, "I only have this one goat here," and the goat was all shriveled up, right? Like when you go to halal guys or somewhere to get food, and they just have that last bunch of like chicken gyro, where it's just like stuck to the pan. That's all that was there. The Prophet ﷺ goes, he reads some dua, and he touches the udders of this animal. And when he touches the udders of this animal, there begins to fill milk inside there. And the Prophet ﷺ asks for a container, and then he pours it out. And the first thing he does is he gives it to this lady, Marbad. It's the first thing he does. He doesn't drink it himself. He doesn't tell Abu Bakr. He doesn't. No. First thing, ladies first, came from the sunnah. He gives it to Marbad. Then after that, Abu Bakr drinks, he drinks, and then he leaves some for Marbad behind. And he goes on. That's all that happened. The man went and ate food. That's it. And he left. Her husband comes back, sees milk at home, and he's like, "Whoa, where did this come from?" And then she goes on, she describes the Prophet, which we're about to go over. But before I go into her description of the Prophet ﷺ, there's one thing that I want to capitalize on. And that is, you probably never heard a lecture about it. And if you did, you probably heard it from me. Which is on tipping. On the importance of tipping. The Prophet ﷺ tipped. He didn't just go there, indulge with Marbad, then he left. No. He left something behind. I was once in St. Louis for a conference with Imam Yasin and Mufti Asif. And there was this restaurant that was in front of the masjid. So we had a conference ahead of us. I was at the restaurant, we were eating. And the lady who was serving us, we began speaking to her. And I said, "Look, I'm going to be speaking at this Muslim conference this whole weekend. I'm out of town. You work here. This is St. Louis, so there's not a lot of restaurants around. You tell me what's something important to talk about." And the first thing she said, "Man, I've worked in a lot of places, but you Muslims never tip." And then she started telling me, she's like, "I work 2 jobs. She's like, "I literally work about 70, 80 hours a week." She says, I have no one that supports me. I have so many bills. I'm going through so much struggle. And when they come to the restaurant, they act like they own me. They act like they own us, right? Because we have this like Desi mentality. Nokorani, Nokar, or like this mentality of when we were in Saudi Arabia or an Egyptian country and we had our workers, right? That's what we feel the people at restaurants are for us. But no, I mean, you view everybody as the same. You view everybody as equals. I'm sure you've seen that image online where there's this mother, she stands next to her kid, and there's this person picking up a garbage can, and she says, do well in life, or study in school, or else you'll be like him. And then there's another image, and the image is of a mother telling her kid, do well in school, so you can make a better place for a person like him. So you can make a better world for that individual. And then there's that other one that someone said that, oh, this is the garbage man. The father said, no, son, he's not the garbage man, we're the garbage men. We're the ones that have garbage, they're the ones that come and clean our garbage up. There's a difference. Anyway, so the Prophet ﷺ leaves this behind. Always leave something behind. It's a small tip. Order less, get a smaller plate of food, but leave something behind. This is the prophetic method. You leave a tip behind. We are walking, talking da'was. Da'wah is not always spitting a brochure or a pamphlet at somebody, right? Or going and telling them that, say the kalima. No. Da'wah is small actions. Look, the Prophet ﷺ didn't sit there and say la ilaha illallah, I'm the Prophet. No, he was trying to keep a low cover. He just arrived there quietly. He didn't say anything. He just had a meal. That was it. But his actions spoke so loud. He goes on, and then she goes on, and she begins to describe him. Taha, do me a favor. There's a canteen here.
A what?
A canteen.
Like snacks and stuff?
What do you guys call them? Not canteens? What are they called? My God, can you give me a bottle of water?
What are you trying to get?
This water. Just grab me some water. Here, take it.
I was trying to find something else.
Does it not cost $1 anymore? You're looking at my dollar?
Never bought anything. Hey, keep the change.
So anyway, so she goes on, she describes the Prophet ﷺ, and she describes him physically. So she goes on, the first thing she says is, ظَاهِرُ الْوَضَاءَ. When you look at this man, he's super clean. He's mashallah got a beard, beautiful hair, but it's not like you can find his dinner in his beard or something. No, he's super fresh and super clean. And when we look at our own rooms, I'm sure the sisters are mashallah clean. But like, guys, I can't tell you how much your parents come and tell me. They're like, yeah, Mufti Wasim, he's a great kid, but his room is dirty. I'm like, okay, like you have to come and see his room. I was like, yeah, you know what? You should come to our house. And when you come, just go check his room out. I'm like, you know how weird that is? But please save me from this. Because everyone's parents come and tells me, oh, you should see underneath his table. And then when I don't come, then they start sending me pictures of your rooms, which is even weirder. But stay clean. That was the first thing that the Prophet ﷺ showed off. ظَاهِرُ الْوَضَاءَ. Wada'a comes from the Arabic word dhaw, which means light. That not only was he clean from outside, he was traveling. He's traveling to the desert. You get dirty there. But no matter where he was, he remained very clean. At-tuhuru shatrul iman. Cleanliness is half of faith. Stay clean. Wash up your outer appearance, your inner appearance. Stay clean at all times. That was the first thing she saw when she saw the Prophet ﷺ. Then she says, husnul khuluq. The man was just perfect. In his entire disposition, his equilibrium in him was remarkable. It was like he was just sculpted so beautiful. There was perfection that dripped from every arch of him, from every limb of him, perfection dripped. And then she goes like, "Lam ta'ibhu thujla." She said he did not have a protruding stomach. This is for us imams, right? That, don't follow your stomach, right? Eat enough that, mashallah, the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't have a stomach. He looked after himself. And when you're young, it's easy, right? And then you get older and you're eating this, what is this thing called? Tic Tacs? What is this thing called? Whatever, Doritos, right? So then you end up not looking after your weight. And it gets easier. When you're 18, 19, 20, your metabolism is racing, you're racing through classes, and then you get a little older, and then you're sitting at a desk job. And then a little bit, then you get stressed. And stress backwards is desserts. And then you go start having desserts. And then you start eating and you get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you no longer look after yourself. I can't tell you how many people I studied with. They were like pencils. And now that I see them, they're like tablets. And they just exponentially just grow. And it's look after yourself, look after your health. It's important for you. Now, there's a difference of people, obviously, who medically can't take. That's different, right? But this is about people not looking after their own health. This is about people not being conscious. Our food is not healthy food, especially if you're desi. It swims in oil, right? If the U.S. knew how much oil was in our food, they'd invade it. They'd invade our karai chicken, right? But it's not healthy food. We have to look after ourselves. We have to look after our food. There's this documentary on Bill Gates. And I know breakfast is really, really important, right? It's the most important meal of the day. But Bill Gates doesn't have breakfast, apparently. Even when you wake up in the morning, have a healthy breakfast. You're eating lunch, have a healthy lunch. You're having dinner, eat a healthy dinner. It's your body. You're going to use it. One day you're just going to wake up and parts of you are going to start hurting. And that's when you're going to know you're old. I haven't reached that age yet. But so you have to look after yourself. That was the first thing. She's talking about the man. She said he was perfect. It wasn't like he was protruding. No, he looked after himself. And then she says, وَلَمْ تُزْرِ بِهِ سَعْلَةً. He didn't have a small head. He had a perfectly dispositioned head. That shows the way you carry yourself, your hair, your look. You should look good. You should look decent. Then she says, wasimun. Now she doesn't call the Prophet ﷺ Jamil. In my entire studies of hadith, wasim only comes twice. Once in this hadith and once when Ja'far bin Abi Talib is described. Not Ja'far. Fadl ibn Abbas. Only 2 places in all of hadith wasim is used to describe. Does anyone know what wasim means? Oh, it's right there, man. Obviously, just not handsome, but like, what is it? There's more depth to it. Perfection, okay. Jamil is beautiful. Why does she call the Prophet Jamil? Jamil is like normal beauty, right? It's like you're beautiful. Wasim is like every single time you see that person, they get more and more beautiful. My name is Wasim, but khair. So Wasim is this intense type of beauty that you just can't get tired of them. They remain the epitome of beauty regardless of who you look at. So she's going on and she's just mind blown by him. Then she says, Qasimun. Qasim, literally. That it's not that one side is protruding. You know, you have like when people start working out, their right arm is like a lot bigger than their left arm. And like when take a picture from this side, not this one, right? The Prophet, super proportion. Equality. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا what is it? وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ. Allah says, we've made you we've made you a moderate ummah. Not only was there moderation in our ummah, in our principle, in our laws, there was moderation in the literal description and the makeup of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then she goes on and she says, فِي عَيْنَيْهِ دَعْجٌ. His eyes were wide. It wasn't that he was small-eyed or he was squinting. No, his eyes were apparent. When you looked into his eyes, you got lost into the eyes of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَفِي أَشْفَارِهِ وَطَفٌ. His eyelashes were thin, they were long, they were apparent. You could see the blackness, you could see the shade of his eyelash that was going over his eyes as his eyes were filled in front of you. وَفِي صَوْتِهِ سَهْلٌ. In his voice there was a crackle. The Prophet ﷺ's voice wasn't super smooth, but there was a level of crackle. And when you have a crackle in your voice, you're able to have more beats in your voice, and your voice is not monotone, but it has different levels. And when you say different words, based on the crackling, different words have different impacts to them. So everything about the man was, you've never even probably thought about your mother or father in this manner, the way she describes the Prophet ﷺ. You probably never, we claim we love people, right? We claim that we're into someone. I can guarantee you that no one can describe their beloved the way Mar'ba described her Prophet ﷺ. So she goes on. She goes from his body, then she goes from his beauty, then she goes to his eyes, then she goes to his eyelashes, then she goes to his voice and his sound. And then she says, وَفِي عُنُقِهِ سَطَعٌ. His neck was long. It wasn't stumped to him, but his neck was long. When he stood between people, he seemed the taller one. And when they moved away, he seemed normal in his height. The Prophet ﷺ, no one seemed taller than the Prophet ﷺ. Did this guy go to like a Shell to buy me water? There's no water in your campus?
There's no napkins. There's water.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm fighting.
There's a different problem.
I'm fighting someone.
It's okay. It's okay.
Napkins.
This is when you've become an uncle. When you just start saying random things like when you've reached
anywhere.
it. Remember when I was telling you that when different parts start hurting? No, there's other, when you start saying random stuff, yeah. Or that's how Facebook would work if you just start yelling random things. Ahwar. The Prophet ﷺ was ahwar. Ahwar means, hur is called hur from this word ahwar, which means that the whiteness of the Prophet ﷺ was milk white. And the blackness of the Prophet ﷺ was like true black. You know how the new iPhone shows you true black? The Prophet ﷺ's eyes, true black, like true tone. The dark, like pitch black. And then right next to that pitch black was pitch white. illuminating. And she's like, you could just see the difference in his eyes. And you could see the clarity in his eyes. It wasn't that you could see like, the red veins and the bloodshot. No. It was just pure, clean. She uses about 8 words to describe his eyes. Akhal. Akhal comes from the Arabic word kuhl. You know what kuhl is? I know it says it there, but what is kuhl? Eyeliner, surma, right? The Prophet ﷺ's eyes naturally looked like they had eyeliner in them. They were dark, they were black. It wasn't like the raccoon from Guardians of the Galaxy. But like, so much so that the eyes, they look more beautiful than apparent. It wasn't in a negative sense. The Prophet, did he put on kuhl in his eyes?
Yes.
Yes, he put it. There's a chapter of this. He put on kuhl. And we'll go over it. But when is the sunnah time of putting kuhl on? Fridays, okay, when? It's generally, kuhl is sunnah to put on before you go to sleep. And not in front of other people. Generally speaking, right? And if you do, you don't put on like a bunch of kuhl. And don't put on kuhl if you're wearing contacts. It's going to burn your eyes. And the best kuhl is ithmid. It's from Iran or Persian. It's this type of kuhl. It's the best form. There's a lot of benefits of it. The Prophet ﷺ would stroke it 1 time, 2 time, 3 time. Or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Or 1, 2, 3. But he stroked his eyes 3 times. These are the different narrations that come about the Prophet ﷺ's kuhl. But his eyes naturally look like they had depth in it. Naturally looked like they were midnight black. There was something going on?
No, I was just telling that if you turn the lights off, then maybe...
Go ahead. No, but then my camera gets messed up. Use your eyes more. Stronger. Come on, you guys know how important lighting is for videos. Azaj. There was a natural arch in the Prophet ﷺ's eyes. It wasn't that his eyebrows were straight, but there was an arch, because an arch shows definition. Someone who's thinking, someone who's looking, someone who's pondering. There's more depth when there's an arch there. Aqran. It looked like his eyebrows met, but they didn't meet. It wasn't that the Prophet ﷺ had a unibrow, because the unibrows are aib. But it looked like it met, and every person has some slight hair here, right? Everyone's got some slight hair over here. The Prophet ﷺ, when he made a motion, it looked as if the eyebrows met. When he made a certain faces. But it wasn't that the Prophet ﷺ's eyebrows were interlocked or they were one or they're unibrow. Some people come and they say it's sunnah to have a unibrow. No, it's not sunnah to have a unibrow. Then it would be sunnah to have hands and feet and hair and eyes, right? Everything is not sunnah. There are certain things that were particular to the Prophet ﷺ. Those are sunnah things. Oh, still not back. Shadidu sawad ash-sha'r. His hair was pitch black. We're going to go over a chapter which tells us how many white hair the Prophet ﷺ had. But his hair was pitch black. There's a surah in the Quran, وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى. وَالضُّحَى, what does it mean? I swear by?
The forenoon. The day.
What's a forenoon?
The daybreak. Forenoon, before noon.
Okay. They meant like 4 p.m. or something. It's when the sun is at its zenith and it's the most brightest. وَالضُّحَى, I swear by the time when the sun is at its brightest, right? A little before noon. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى. What does وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى mean?
When the night covers.
When the night envelops. So Allama Alusi rahmatullahi alayhi in Ruh al-Ma'ani does a different tafsir. He says, وَالضُّحَى, I swear by the blessed illuminating face of Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى, I swear by the dark black locks of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's hair. مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. Your Allah has not abandoned you. So Allama Alusi rahimahullah says that though you may think it's talking about the sun or the night, it's actually talking about the Prophet's face and his black hair, his pitch black hair. Jet black was the Prophet ﷺ's hair. It was, and we're going to talk about the hair of the Prophet. How was it? Was it curly? Was it wavy? Was it straight? How long was it? What were the different lengths? How many times did he shave his head? How many times did he cut his hair? What are the different sunnahs? Did he ever have a tape up like this? How everybody has it these days? They have a little tape up over here and a poof over here. What was the sunnah method of the Prophet ﷺ's hair? I tell people all the time, when you go to sleep at nighttime, close your eyes and think to yourself, if you were put next to the Prophet ﷺ, how many people on the day of judgment would mistake you for his son or his daughter? Like, what is, if the Prophet's daughter was placed next to us, how many would mistake her and you as a sister? How much of your inside reflects the man? How much of your outside reflects the man? And every night ask yourself this question. Because before you meet your Allah and you go and you see Him, you want to look and resemble in a manner that you look just like Him. That you resemble Him and you embody Him and you reflect Him. إِذَا صَمَتَ عَلَاهُ الْوَقَارِ. When the Prophet would stay quiet, there would be a sense of respect and dignity. The Prophet ﷺ didn't walk into a class of Sahaba just chit-chatting, talking. And no. The Prophet ﷺ, the moment he was an eye shot, there was pin drop silence. When we were studying, the moment we knew our teacher was in our view, coming to our class, everybody was down, quiet. I have never remembered a time the teacher walked in and had to tell us to stay quiet. I never remembered a time when dars is going on, 4 hours straight, we're in the same position in tashahud for 4 hours. And never do I remember a person talking to another and a teacher telling them to stay quiet. Ever in my life. And we didn't even have chairs. We sat on the floor, straight. And our carpet, you could feel the brick underneath it. And we sat for 4 hours. But that was us respecting the words of the Prophet. The people who surrounded the Prophet, they had far more respect for him. Even his silence taught them lessons. There was a scholar by the name of Shah Wasiullah rahmatullahi alayh. You see, this phenomena and this bid'ah is only specific and new to our generation. In the past, people didn't just go to scholars to listen to their lectures or watch their videos online. They went and they observed scholars. And they learned from their actions, their interactions, how they carried themselves. They learned from the whole package. Right now, we just take their words and that's all we dissect. And that's all that impresses us. Whereas people of the past, they dissected the individual as a whole. Shah Wasiullah rahmatullahi alayhi was one of those people. He used to have lectures. Or he used to have times where he would give talks. His lectures would, for the most part, be no conversation. And maybe one hadith, two hadith you would say at the end, but for the half an hour, 40 minutes, people just stayed quiet and just sat. They sat in reflection. Jazakallah khair. Where did this come from? Did you go to the spring and...
No, the student union.
So how did you get 4 of them? I gave you $1.
They wouldn't accept.
You're a magician here. So Shah Wasiullah rahmatullahi alayhi should stay quiet. People in his gathering would contemplate a lot, reflect a lot, think about your sins, your deeds. Where have you been? How much have you progressed in life? These are all reflective things. So one time a guy came to Shah Wasiullah's lecture and it was the first time. He heard big things about the scholar. He comes and he sits down and he waits for like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Sheikh's quiet, everybody's quiet. He's like, dude, when is the lecture going to begin? So he starts, poking the people next to him. So then the sheikh said to him, he's like, brother, he's like, before you benefit, the one who cannot benefit from my silence cannot benefit from my speech. And let that reflect. The one who cannot benefit from my silence cannot benefit from my speech. You have to first benefit from someone's silence. You have to first benefit. I mean, it's a thought-provoking, mind-blowing concept that the ability to sit there, observe, and reflect and learn in silence. That doesn't happen anymore. We don't go through that level of reflection. We just come there, absorb, and then go outside, and then it slowly just seeps out of us, right? But we don't really take it in to ourselves and just maintain it. So anyway, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam majalis, إِذَا صَمَتَ عَلَاهُ الْوَقَارِ. In his silence, he would get a sense of respect and honor and dignity, and people would be awestruck. وَإِن تَكَلَّمَ عَلَاهُ الْبَهَاءِ. But when the Prophet spoke, every word of his was important. There was nothing useless, nothing pointless. No. You've been to many classes. The teacher goes on off topic. I go off topic a lot when I teach. I go on tangents all the time. The Prophet of Allah never went on tangents. His words, every one of them, impactful, important, measured, weighty. إِذَا تَكَلَّمَ عَلَاهُ الْبَهَاءِ. The poet says, الصمت زين والسكوت سلامة. الصمت زين والسكوت سلامة. فإذا نطقت فلا تكن مكثارا. وما إن ندمت على السكوت مرة ولقد ندمت على الكلام مرارا. The poet says, stay quiet and learn to perfect your silence. If you speak, don't speak too much. For I have never regretted. Why did I not say something? But I have regretted many times why I opened my mouth. I've never regretted why didn't I say something. But many times I opened my mouth and I was like, oh, I should have stayed quiet. I shouldn't have said anything. Control this. Allah has given you 32 bars and then sealed them in between, but it still breaks loose, right? Control it and know when to speak and measure your words. Increase the importance of your words. أجمل الناس وأبهاهم من بعيد. He was the most beautiful. And he wasn't just like you could go around the Prophet ﷺ. No, he had this aura around him. He had this feeling around him that when people came, they were just awestruck. They were just dumbfounded. They were just astonished. They were just amazed when they're around the Prophet ﷺ. وَأَحْسَنَهُ وَأَحْلَاهُ مِنْ قَرِيبٍ. But you know when you see someone from far, and then you're like, oh man, I don't know how that person's going to be. You melt when you see them, right? You're awestruck. You're mind blown. But when you come near them, then all of a sudden, وَأَحْسَنَهُمْ وَأَحْلَى. In Arabic, what does hulu mean? Sweet. That the Prophet ﷺ, when you're next to him, it's like you're indulging in a dessert. And when a person's indulging in a dessert, they're fully calm, they're comfortable, they're in composure, and they're enjoying it, and they're relishing. So she says that from far you're awestruck, but when you come near the man, it's like you just don't want to leave. It's the sweetest thing in the world. It's like you can taste the air around him. It's like you can experience him in complete comfort and peace. And it's like you're fully enjoying yourself. You know when you're having dessert, you're done with your meal, everything's done, and you're just taking a small spoon at a time. You know when you're hungry and you go home, you just go straight to the plate, right? Whether you're a guy or a girl, doesn't matter. You just look, nobody's looking, all right, you just delve in. But when it comes to dessert, you enjoy it. And you take your time. And you don't just gobble it down, but you take it spoon by spoon and you relish it. And she's like, that's how the company of the Prophet ﷺ was. The adjective she uses for the Prophet, mind-blowing. This woman, eloquent. One of the most eloquent descriptions, if not the most eloquent description of the Prophet ﷺ. She saw him once, and she only narrated one hadith in her life. That's it. One hadith. That's all she narrated. Knowing the Prophet ﷺ, that's it. She knew one hadith, and it was enough for her. We know thousands, and it's not enough for us. That shows that more knowledge won't always make you better. Yes, it can make you better, but if your heart and your sincerity is not in the right place, it won't make you better. Hulwul mantiqi. His speech was sweet. I'm going to stop here, continue this next week inshallah, and go over the Q&A that we have. Can you pull it up on here, Zisha? In the meantime, somebody has a question just from the crowd, they can raise their hands and ask until we pull up these questions. So if you want to skip the line, go ahead.
Can you translate and also maybe say what the significance of the tashahhud is in prayer?
Yeah, that's a very long discussion. I usually why don't you do this? I'll give you a better option. Schedule a talk sometime. I do a 2-hour talk from Allahu Akbar to Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. What each word means, why we do each position, what does Surah Fatiha mean, Ruku or Sajda, what we're saying in each aspect of it. I go into depth of it, inshallah. Okay. Can you wear fake lashes? I can't wear them. But no, can you wear fake lashes? No. The Prophet ﷺ said, La'an Allah, al-washimat wal-mustawshimat, al-wasil wal-mustawsil. The one who attaches fake hair. So it's not permissible. Can you pray after smoking weed? The Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran says, La taqrabu as-salah wa antum sukara. Don't come to prayer while you are intoxicated. The reason is because while you are intoxicated with alcohol, you have no idea of what's going on. Being intoxicated with weed is slightly different, whereas in the sense of it being impermissible and not allowed, it is like alcohol. That is forbidden, you can't do it, because it does alter your senses. Now someone says, no, well, drunk is different and weed is different. Every type of drinking is also different. Not every alcohol gives you the exact same buzz. So it's not about the fact that it's not exactly the same, but it's similar. Khamar in the Arabic word comes from the word khimar. What does khimar mean? A scarf. And the reason khamar is called khamar, alcohol is called khamar, because it covers your intellect and it dumbs you down and it slows your processing ability. So therefore, in that sense, it's impermissible and it's not allowed. However, because its intoxication is not on the level of alcohol where a person completely loses control of their faculties, you still have to pray salah in that sense as well. So don't make that your excuse that, oh, I am in that zone, so therefore I'm not going to pray. No, pray salah, do tawbah. Yes, there is another aspect of it, which is that any slight level of intoxication, a person does not get reward for 40 days of their prayer. So you lose the blessings, you lose the spirituality of it. However, do tawbah to Allah. Ask Allah to forgive you, and ask Allah to remove all of your sins, and ask Allah the strength to not do it again. And then pray salah. Allah can flip it, Allah can change it, and Allah can absolve the fact that the reward of the spirituality isn't felt. Tawbah can change everything. All you have to do is do it. Now, sometimes you do it multiple times, sometimes you do it hundreds of times, but one day you will stop. But if you never do tawbah and you never ask Allah for forgiveness, you'll never stop. And you'll just normalize and it'll be okay for you. And it'll just be part of your life for as long as you go. Remember one thing, we're the first generation that everyone's experimenting on. We're all guinea pigs. We're all hamsters. They're experimenting everything on us. From vapes and drugs and social media and all of these addictions. We are the most addicted generation this world has ever seen. And we don't have one addiction. Every one of us is an addict of something. We are literally hooked onto something. There's very few people here don't have an addiction. Someone on social media, someone to their phone, someone to their laptop, someone to drugs, someone to tobacco, someone to something else. But everyone's an addict. And that means you don't have control over your life, because an addict doesn't have control over their life. And when you can't control yourself, then you can't control anything. We're those who conquer the world, but if we can't conquer ourselves, how are we going to conquer the world? So we lose our own ability and our own capacity. People ask me the question all the time, halal, haram, leave all these things to the side. You can accomplish so much. Every one of you could have been born in a different country. Most of you are immigrants. You could have been on the streets of Kabul selling tea, or on the streets of Cairo hustling tourists for a picture, or on the streets of India, Pakistan, sweeping the floor. But it was the sheer decision and wisdom of Allah that He plucked your parents out, and He plucked you out of that environment, and He gave you an opportunity, and He gave you health, and He gave you family that could afford education, and He put you in a city where you could learn, and He gave you an opportunity to make something of yourself. So not for yourself. We don't live for ourselves. We live for everyone else. Because we're not selfish people. We have a bigger goal. We have a bigger vision. We can accomplish so much. I said that one time. I've said this actually many times. But I was at Rutgers University. I used to teach there for a few weeks. And I used to say this all the time. And I used to say, I believe that there are people in this room that can change the world. I really believe it. And I believe that this world can get any benefit. And all this oppression and all this evil can be defeated. It can be defeated with the people that are in this room. I firmly believe it. I say this all the time. And there were some students. One of I think his brother or someone messaged me the other day, said, if you're ever in Jersey, come down to Rutgers. Few kids from that class at that time, they went on. They created a concept that's going to help the poor. They people that need rides to get to work. And then they worked on it, and then they pitched it, and then they secured millions for it. They won this award, I think from the UN or something, and they're called Roshni Rides. I don't know if anybody heard of them. Roshni Rides? No? Is this big competition every year that they give a certain amount of millions or something to the most innovative project. And these 4 Muslim kids, they did it. 2 girls, 2 boys. They figured it out. Then they got married to each other. So there was a lot of success in that story. But the point is, you can do so much. But you just have to put your mind and heart to it. Don't waste your life. There's so many people. Your nightmare is someone else's dream. People would kill to be in the shoes that you're wearing right now. People would kill to be in the seat that you are in right now. Just value your time and value who you can be. Anyway. How to know if you have met the right significant other. So, you never know. No, look, there's many ways of measuring love and how much you care for a person, how important someone is. From the ability of being able to converse with someone who connects with you. People have different priorities. There was actually a study that was done on different groups. What was there in America and outside of America? What were people's priorities in a relationship? And they had different categories, from job, from humor, from family, from financial. There's a bunch of other things. So everybody has a different motive in life. Some people prefer to have a very career-oriented lifestyle. Some people prefer a very community service-based lifestyle. Some people prefer a very low-key lifestyle. Some people prefer a very social lifestyle. It's important to meet people that you're able to connect on different levels and find what's important for you. Sometimes lifestyle choices isn't important for you. Sometimes something else is important for you. Regardless of what is important for you, there has to be some similarities in you so that your relationship can grow. Our parents, I was talking to a friend last night, and is he watching this thing? I don't know. Even if he does, he'll forgive me, inshallah. I was talking to him last night, and I was like, we're just talking. I'm like, hey, how'd you meet your wife? And he was like, grandma screwed us over. Meaning that his grandma suggested the cousin, and that's how they got married, right? So, and it's just, it's our parents could have worked like that, right? Someone could have been like, all right, you're marrying your cousin, or you're the neighbor 2 doors down. And they're just like, all right. And then just made it work. And sometimes they didn't. But our generation can't. Our generation requires a more intimate bond, a bond where it's far deeper than just physical looks. So for most people, that's very important. Now, out of all those things, measure. Does this person connect with you on an emotional level, on a physical level, and also on a spiritual level at the same time? You want people that are on the same spiritual path as you. If you're too excelled and they're too back, or you're too back and they're too excelled, it's going to be a struggle. You're marrying an individual that's supposed to be your soul mate. You're not marrying your Hifz class teacher or something. You know, girls say, oh, I want to marry him because he's a Hafiz. What is he going to teach you, the Quran or something? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, but that's what the masjid is for. That's not what marriage is for, right? So grow out of these things, right? People have this idea that if I marry a Hafiz, he's going to read Quran to me every night, and we're going to wake up to the morning with Fajr Adhan. No. You're going to have to be slapping him too to wake him up at the same time. So meet people who have priorities and not just labels on them. Look beyond, right? And I tell people a way to know if someone if someone's the one, it's if every good thing that happens to you, if they're the first person you want to tell, and every difficulty that happens to you, they're the first person you want to tell to. Now, obviously, it goes into a further discussion of how long you should talk to someone, how well can you get to know them, what are the permissibility bounds and all that, but I think that's a different question.
The 2 water bottles. Do you remember that analogy? Never mind.
I just have one here, man.
What you're talking about.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
You forgot I don't call many things. Only for you.
Okay. Why were concubines allowed in Islam? In Islam, in the earlier days, it wasn't that concubines were allowed, they were not prohibited. It's like saying alcohol. Why was alcohol allowed in Islam? Alcohol wasn't allowed. Alcohol just wasn't prohibited in the beginning, and then it slowly was prohibited. The philosophy of Islam has always been to eradicate slavery from the beginning, and that's why if you break your oath, what are you supposed to do? Free a slave. If you do dihar is when you say, I'm not going to approach my spouse in X amount of months. What are you supposed to do? You free a slave. If you break your fast in Ramadan intentionally, what do? Free a slave. There's constantly, Islam encourages, if you free a slave, you get this reward and that reward. There was this constant motivation to free slaves by the Prophet ﷺ. However, as lands were growing and people were being conquered, now they did not have systems of jails like they do right now. There weren't cells and there weren't mechanisms of mass holding of people of that level and caliber. How do you feed a village that barely can nourish itself, now has to house thousands of captives from war and feed them? That's an added effort on each individual. So now the Islam gave the opportunity that, okay, these people, bring them into your homes. Now you are viewing slavery from the colonial aspect of slavery, where they beat the slaves and they treated them bad and they were harsh and they scolded. No, this was different in Islam. In Islam, you had to treat them just like you treated yourself. Feed them from what you eat is the Prophet's words. Clothe them from what you wear. That's the Prophet's words. If they are working and it's hot outside, help them in their work. This is not slavery from the level that you understand slavery. That slavery was barbaric. Over here was housing an individual and teaching them and making them understand what the culture of Islam was and providing them a place of accommodation, food and drinking and all of those things. Now, was there abuse that took place? Yes, always abuse takes place in a relationship of discourse. Was it slavery to an extent? Yes, it was slavery. It wasn't that they were just glorified guests inside homes. No, there was a level of slavery. However, what was the whole philosophy of it? That bring people in your home, bring them close to the culture of Islam, and then free them, remove them, push them away, bring them back into society, and make them a working member of society. There are a plethora of former slaves in Islam that went on to go become great scholars. Hassan al-Basri rahimahullah, which family did he come from? Slaves. Bilal radiallahu anhu, which family did he come from? Slaves. The man's the first person to walk into Jannah. He's literally the first person to step into Jannah. He's going to be taking the Prophet's ride into Jannah. So therefore, his step will be the first step in Jannah. Which religion has a black man being the first foot in Jannah? Please tell me which religion. None. The whole concept was to eradicate something. But Islam is realistic and not just idealistic. You can't just get up and say, okay, free everybody. It didn't work in that culture and that time. There is no single hadith. There's no single verse that says, go make slaves. That is important to have. If you have one slave, you get X amount of reward. If you have 10 slaves, you get. There's no reward for these things. There is no motivation for it. You never heard an imam get on a member and say, brothers and sisters, we don't have enough slaves. No, this doesn't go on, right? This is not an Islamic tenet. The idea was to eradicate it. And again, if it was to happen, the necessary evil at that time to house captives because they did not have a system of jails or cells, then house them and house them kindly, be gracious to them and treat them well. And if you end up cohabiting with them, and they fall pregnant, then that person cannot be sold. The child becomes free. The mother becomes a different classification called Umm Walad. And there was a bunch of laws put in place. You won't find any type of these things across any culture, whether it was European, whether it was African, whether it was North American. You won't find the treatment of slavery that was found in Islam anywhere else. What we fail to realize is that Islam was ages ahead of itself when it came to peace, when it came to treating human rights, but Islam was also idealistic. The Prophet didn't walk in and say, alcohol is haram. He was realistic, Islam is realistic. He understood that it takes time for these things to happen. Following? Yes? Okay.
Do they have religious freedom?
Yeah.
The slaves?
Yeah.
You can't force them to be...
No. The Prophet heavily encouraged the freeing of slaves.
So, like, even in modern, because, like, it was never prohibited, in modern day, if someone were to come out of nowhere and be like, let's do this concept and strictly follow it the way they did at the Prophet's time, would that be allowed or would that not be allowed?
It can't be, because a slave can only... slaves were prisoners of war. That was the only way someone became a slave. Okay. And that was there because they didn't have cells. And they didn't have ways of housing them.
So present day, regardless of
they can't.
Situation. Okay.
Once the Geneva Convention took place about 60, 70 years ago, everyone agreed to be in a level of truce. Islam allows, and that goes on to the question of jihad. What's the purpose of jihad? Well, I'm a country next to another country. Either I'm going to invade you, or you're going to invade me, or we're at peace. So unless we're at peace, somebody's invading somebody else. So that's the reason jihad was emphasized and motivated, was because you don't want to be sitting ducks, right? We're not passive at the same time as well. But the idea is that now everyone is in a sense of peace, perpetual peace. And the Prophet ﷺ said, the one who breaks a peace agreement from a believers will not even smell the fragrance of Jannah. And the fragrance of Jannah can be experienced 500 years away from Jannah. Is taking unsubsidized FAFSA loans for a university degree considered haram? What even is this? What is this?
It's about interest.
Taking loans in order to pay your tuition for college.
you're going to take loans regardless, right? That's the unfortunate setup of it is. I hold very strongly against interest, and I have a very strong opinion against it. It's impermissibility. This is what I say. If you're doing something wrong, do it and ask Allah for forgiveness, and Allah will forgive you. But to justify it and try to make it right is just to stroke your conscience, in my opinion. Riba is haram. It's clear as daylight. Now, what if you are going through student loan and you have interest? What should be done? Try your best as fast as you can to pay off your loan. Don't go around indulging, buying an iPhone 11, getting an expensive car, going on vacations, and just blowing off your money. No, use only what you need and get rid of that loan as soon as possible. It's like a credit card loan. If you have a credit card loan and you pay it off before the interest incurs, it's permissible to have because you're not paying the interest. Same thing with your student loans. Be frugal about it. Don't indulge in your wealth. We go, we party. We go, we vacation. We indulge. We're all holding $1,000 phones. We're all driving very expensive cars. We all splurge. And then we sit back, and when it comes to interest, then we're like, oh, can we find a halal fatwa on this? No, it doesn't work like that, right? It's wrong. But how do you solve it? Work towards it. And do istighfar to Allah. Ask Allah to forgive you. And that's a mistake between you and Allah, and that's the circumstances we live in. May Allah protect us, may Allah forgive us, and may Allah allow us to break away from these things. And also, please study harder. What should you do when you constantly have a feeling of disappointment towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? A person gets frustrated or disappointed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when they don't get the return that they're looking for. The dua that I make, the thing that I want, I didn't get it back. Therefore, I'm upset at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a fundamental issue here, and the fundamental issue is that my love for that individual object or that person supersedes my love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the initial root problem that is in this scenario is that I love XYZ more than I love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Take a step back, and whatever you love, you will lose one day. No love of yours will remain everlasting, and no love of yours will remain unlimited. Every love has a moment where it ceases, whether through your death or through their death, or mutual agreement to move away. It doesn't work out. Every love has to end. So now you ask yourself that love was taken away from you. Inevitably, even if it was to run its course, it has to end one day. And this is a finite love. And every finite thing must come to an end. Whereas you've had an infinite God who has given you and blessed you far beyond you have ever imagined. He's given you things you've never asked. You're focused on those things you didn't get when you asked. What about all those things that you got when you never asked them? This individual that came into your life, how did they come into your life? They came into your life because God orchestrated it. He did it to teach you a lesson. He taught you what it means. Every pain you experience in life, it teaches you a lesson in life, and it lets you rise above later on. There is, my foot fell asleep. There is this, one of my teachers, his students told me this story. He was supposed to get married to this girl. He was really into her. Didn't work out. It's like story of my life. When I was in China, anyone been to China here? China? I've been to Beijing, Linzhou, Lanzhou, Guangzhou, Xi'an, and Hong Kong. They don't serve you cold water there. It's always hot water. Thank you for giving me the experience of China. I remember the first time I ordered a cup of water. It was myself and my teacher. He's really old. And it was just me and him. You learn a lot when you travel with your teachers. And he drank it, and he didn't know it was going to be so hot. So he just took a sip because the food was so spicy, and it burned his mouth. And he was like, this is really hot. And I'm like, I can see the steam. Yeah, I get it. He's like, try some. I'm like, no, I'm good. He's like, no, try it. I was like, oh, man. And I had to take a sip and be like, yeah, it's hot. But anyway, so my teacher, same one, Mufti al-Haq. One of my other friends who's a scholar, a very senior scholar, who was telling this story. He said that he was supposed to get married to this girl, really liked her, was really into her, and it didn't work out. And when it didn't work out, he was devastated, shattered. So then he went to Mufti Sahib and he said that, Hazrat, this is what's happened and I'm really broken, right? I didn't think I could lose her and I lost her. And Mufti Sahib said an iconic sentence to him. He said, Aisa waqt aayega is afsos par afsos hoga. He said a time is going to come when you're going to be sad at being sad at this time. Your only regret is going to be the regret you had at this time. That's the only thing. And I promise to God, every heartbreak will make you stronger. Every separation will make you stronger. It will make you grow. Because everything is finite. And I tell my friends all the time, when you love something, love it in moderation. You cannot love something unlimited that is finite. Because finite love can't give you a return. Whereas infinite love has been giving it to you. Has given you. And you don't know what's to come to you. You don't know what's going to come in your life. You don't know what else is left for you. And Allah has had this elaborate plan. So a person who struggles with this, reflect on your connection with Allah. Reflect on all of those things that you have. And all of the things that you have that nobody else has. From safety, from health, from love, from family, from wealth, from education, from eyesight. Just take one blessing of yours and you'll find 1 million that would die to have your blessing. Just touch one thing. One man came to Hassan Basri rahimahullah and he said, I'm broke. So the man said, cool. All right. He said, Hassan Basri said, I'll give you $250. He said, oh yeah? He said, yeah. He's like, just give me your arm. He's like, what? He's like, I'll give you $250 for it. And he's like, I'm not giving you my arm for $250. He's like, all right, I'll give you $500 for it. He's like, no. He's like, I'll give you $1 million for it. He's like, not giving you my arm. So then he says, you're standing with millions on you and you're saying you don't have anything? We're millionaires. We're billionaires. We're priceless. Ask the one who doesn't have a kidney sitting in a hospital bed what the price of a kidney is. I can guarantee you how many of us have thanked Allah for a kidney. Ask the one who has a hole in his heart what it means. You talk about having a hole in your heart, people who have real holes in their hearts. Every struggle you have, لعمرك ما أهويت كفي لريبة. I'll end off with this. And then the rest of these questions we'll do next week, inshallah. I'll tell you all a story. You have 5 minutes? One last story? Okay. Urwa bin Zubair bin al-Awwam, radiyallahu anhu. Urwa was the son... Did I tell you the story? No. Did I? Last week, Urwa bin Zubair, the one who was invited by Salman bin Abdul Malik bin Marwan. I said the story here?
Yeah. He lost his leg.
He lost his son. What did he say? وَعَلِمْتُ أَنَّمَا أَصَابَتْنِي مِن مُصِيبَةٍ قَدْ أَصَابَتْ فَتًى مِّن قَبَلِي. I know that every single problem in my life, someone before me had it too. And someone after me will have it worse. We have to learn to look at our blessings. What we have and not what we don't have. Because there's a lot you don't have. But there's also so much that you do have. If you count the things you don't have, you'll just keep on counting. But if you also count the things that you have, you'll still keep on counting. Because each blessing, وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. One blessing of Allah you can't count. Everybody can count to one. How many projectors in this room? One. Everyone can count to one. Allah says you can't even count one blessing of Allah. He doesn't say, وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَ اللَّهِ. نِعْمَةَ Allah. One ni'mah. Why? Because one blessing has 1,000 blessings in it. My blessing of eyesight. I can see my mother. I can see my father. I can learn. I can see someone beautiful. I can see the Kaaba. I can read the Quran. I can see my friends. I can go bowling. I can drive. I can see the texture of my food. And I went to this Hajj event at Frisco Masjid. And we all said some few words. I just came to visit and they just dragged me on stage. And then after that, there was this visually challenged brother who did Hajj. And he was like, yeah, alhamdulillah, I went to Hajj. He's like, I couldn't see the Kaaba. I couldn't see anything, but it was the most amazing thing of my life. I mean, we can't concentrate in prayer because there's nothing physical in front of us. Kaaba at least makes us think something, right? Because there's a physical entity, there's a building. This man, he can't see the Kaaba. And he went and he did Hajj. And he came back and he was like, yeah, it would have been nice to see the Kaaba, but khair. This other brother I met, visually challenged. visually tested is the word I like to use. So I said, I'll make dua for you. Or, no, I met someone who could get their eyesight back through a surgery. This one person from Egypt. And they asked him, Sheikh Abdullah Kamil. They asked him, they said, we want to get the surgery done for you. And he said, no. He said, I've never seen haram in my life. He said, why would I? He said, why would I get the surgery done? He's like, I want to go to Allah without seeing one haram thing. He's like, and I want the first thing on the day of judgment that I see is Allah. I'm telling you, every morning when you get up, read Alhamdulillah 100 times before you touch your phone. And buy an alarm clock. Don't put the alarm on your phone. Otherwise, you wake up and the first thing you do, the notifications is sculpting your mind. Don't touch your phone for the first 5 minutes. And just say Alhamdulillah 100 times. And count your blessings, 100 of them. I promise you'll be able to. First day will be hard. Second day will be easier. Third, and after that, everything will seem like a blessing to you. You'll walk around and you'll just say, when you say Alhamdulillah, it won't just be like a machine gun, Alhamdulillah. No. But it will be like you'll be experiencing it. Alhamdulillah. 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 And you're reflecting, Alhamdulillah for my intellect. Alhamdulillah for safety. Alhamdulillah for mom, dad. Alhamdulillah for my brother. So anyway, inshallah, until next week. There's also one more thing Zishan has to put up on the board. If anybody wants to have some one-on-one discussion, I think we're going to be doing it at the library. You can reserve time slots. I come every week. And then I'm also at IACC throughout the week. And for the brothers, tomorrow, inshallah, we're going to go to, after we pray Isha at IACC, and then we go have Pazukis at BJ's. So if anybody's interested in coming tomorrow, it's only for 18 plus. Just let Faraj know. The guy with the afro and the yellow shirt. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.